This has been a little hectic, to say the least, and sorry for the lineups at the registration desk or at the badge pickup desk. We've got a heck of a lot more people than we thought we were going to have, so that's a good problem to have, but nonetheless, it's still a bit of a problem. So thank you for your patience. We'll get everybody's badges and so on sorted out at the break or over lunch. You're also supposed to have a nice, pretty lanyard that has a RISC-V logo on it and a USB stick with all of the presentations that you're going to get today and tomorrow. FedEx has decided to hang on to that for a little bit longer. So we appreciate them keeping that safe for us, and hopefully they'll be here around lunchtime and we'll replace either the strings or the Intel lanyards that you have, kind of ironic, with the real ones. Okay, so with that, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Rick O'Connor. I'm the executive director of the foundation, and someone wants to, actually, that's a good reminder. Someone's probably texting me to remind me to turn off the, put your phones in sleep mode, please, or at least in buzz mode, so that we're not interrupted throughout the day. So with that, we're going to jump into it. Thanks for being here. This is pretty exciting. I'm going to go through a little bit about the logistics and overview. For those of you that were at the workshop in Oracle, you'll have seen some of this. Obviously, there's updates that we're happy to share. And maybe before we get going, a big thank you to Kurt and Arvin and Andy and the team here at MIT for providing us with this great facility to host the workshop. So if you have the opportunity to see those guys meandering around, then thank them because it's great that we're able to host it here. And first and foremost, I know a lot of you folks know each other, but we're here to learn, obviously, about a great new technology called RISC-V, and we're here to learn from each other. So do yourself a favor during the breaks and lunches and so on. Talk to people that you don't know, as opposed to just going and seeing the people that you do know. It's great to say hello to the folks you know. We'll have a lot of time together today, this evening during the reception, and tomorrow. Seek out some people that you don't know and ask them what they're doing with RISC-V or what they think about what's going on. Also, we encourage you to live blog on Twitter if you want, on the handle. And if you're not already following the foundation on our LinkedIn page, you should do so. And of course, we have all the mail lists that are up on the RISC-V site if you haven't been following us on those lists. So a couple of stats, because this is pretty cool and has certainly made my life really interesting over the last month and a half. Because as we've been getting ready to launch the foundation formally, we've had this notion of founding sponsors, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But just the difference in growth that we've had in the workshops. The absolute value of these numbers is probably wrong, so ignore the absolute detail of the number, but it's approximately right? Our first workshop, which was in Monterey a year and a half ago, that should be 2015 at the top, not 2016. 144 folks. We had 120 on the second one, which was hosted on campus at Berkeley. And then we had the first foundation run workshop last January in Oracle with 157. We had room for 150, and we had 157 people, 42 companies and 26 universities. And then this has been a bit of a zoo with getting up to 250. We actually have 266 registered, 63 companies and 42 universities represented across the registration list. So that's pretty staggering. And it's exciting to see. I'm going to pop over to the agenda real quick. Just point out a couple of items. So after my talk here, and I'll try to wrap up and keep us on time, Kirsta's going to give us a talk about interrupts. We've got some formal specification work that Arvin's going to talk about, and heterogeneous multi-core from Thomas. And then after the break, and we've left full half hours for each of the breaks, so take advantage of using that time to be doing your email or returning any phone calls and so on, as opposed to doing it in here. But after the break, we've got an interesting presentation from Joe at NVIDIA about their evaluation of RISC-V. And Chris is always entertaining with the different things he talks about. So he's got some ISA comparison work. And then the low-risk team with Wei talking about debugging. And then the lunch, we'll be picking the lunch up the same place where the breakfast was served. And there's lots of room inside, and there's lots of tables outside in a common area under some trees. They don't really want us to bring food and beverage into this room. I know there's folks here that might think that that's okay to do, but we've been asked to not. So, and also the lunches will be box lunches, so you pick up your box and then be respectful of the property and dispose of that in the garbage bins that are out there after you're done, please. Then after lunch, we've got a couple of interesting talks discussing the need for coherency and clustering, one from Mohammed at IDT, and then coherency and storage from Dehan at Western Digital. The Code ASIP and Secure RF guys are going to talk about RISC-V in an ASIP application. Arun Thomas, I haven't seen Arun yet today. You here, Arun? Is going to give us a bit of an update on some of the software development work that's been going on, and Guy from VectorBlocks has got an update. There's an Arduino port for RISC-V, which is pretty cool. We'll hear about that from Marco. And then Jack's going to give us an update. If you haven't seen, the Sci-Fi guys have made some product announcements, and Jack will give us an update on that. And then at 4:30, we've got actually 20, I believe, poster previews now. Each of the poster guys will come up and have a one-slide preview to entice you to visit their poster station during the reception. You'll be able to at least put a face to the topic and then go seek them out. And then for the reception, our good friends at Google are hosting the reception, which is just a 5-minute walk over here on Main Street. They'll feed us, they'll provide us some libations, and all the poster sessions will be set up there. So it'll be a good networking event for a couple hours to see the posters and enjoy ourselves. So it's going to be a pretty long day. I will go back to my slides. Before we get too far with this workshop, in addition to hosting the reception, the Mountain View facility, Google's Mountain View facility in California is the venue for our 5th workshop. So these are the dates, November 29th and 30th later this year, and we're probably going to be sticking with, we'll move this up into the June timeframe. So every year there'll be 2 workshops, end of November, first part of December, and June for the 2 workshops. So put that in your calendar for now. Registration, call for papers. Put that in your calendar for now. There'll be call for papers and registration details. It'll come out in the next little bit, but reserve that date. And a big thank you to Google. I'm going to skip through this sort of quickly because I think a lot of you might have seen this before. But Berkeley started this 3-month project back in 2010, right? To, hey, we should come up with a new ISA that it's a clean slate that we can use for development and teaching. And then 4 years later, 2014, so almost 2 years now, the original spec was released. And as we've talked about already with some of the stats, the amount of activity globally around RISC-V is staggering. And for those of you that don't know the naming, RISC-V is actually the 5th RISC research project at Berkeley, dating back to some of the original work under Dave Patterson, the original RISC work for RISC-1, 2, SOAR, and then SPUR. And then at the first workshop that was in Monterey, we started talking about how we could, have the project take on a life of its own outside of Berkeley. I started working with Dave and Kirsta, at least some initial dialogue then. At the second workshop, we had a meeting with a bunch of the member companies or a bunch of the interested companies that were at the workshop around how to launch the foundation. So that was in June of last year. And then August of last year, we incorporated as a nonprofit. 501c6 is the tax designation if anybody cares. So we incorporated in August of 2015 and created the foundation. And it's a nonprofit organization. We're here to really protect the sanctity of the RISC-V ISA, promote it, and make sure that it continues to be a free and open resource, really to be the computing platform for the next several years in every device. Maybe a bit of a lofty goal, but nonetheless, in every device. Lots of cool reasons. I think you'll probably all understand these. I want to make sure that I get us back on time, so I'm not going to go through them in detail. But when you think about the overall stack, with the ISA being in the middle, the amount of innovation that we can create and leverage in the industry and in the ecosystem, if we're able to keep that stable and predictable for all users and allow the innovation above and below, then we think we can really leverage something interesting. I get this a lot. Where are the open source RISC-V cores? Well, they'll be from any member company or any organization, member or not. The foundation is about the ISA spec. We're certainly going to promote, facilitate, and if there's RISC-V cores, open cores that people want to publicize and so on, great. We're going to encourage open source ones, closed source ones, and any combination thereof. But the foundation, strictly speaking, is about the sanctity of the RISC-V ISA and the specs associated with that. So the RISC-V ISA and all related standards will remain open and license-free to all parties. That's really the main governing principle behind creating the foundation. We're certainly going to have some test suites, if you will, to be able to show compliance, not necessarily performance, but compliance against the RISC-V ISA, and that'll be developed. There's a bunch of ideas that have been floating around, but that'll be developed by the community, and we want those to be open so that when someone says, yes, this is a RISC-V device, everybody knows what that means. And we're going to use, basically, part of the membership agreement will include, for commercial use, license to the trademark to be able to say that your device, if it's a commercial device as opposed to an academic or research device, that your device, in fact, is a RISC-V compliant device, then there's a license that will be required for the RISC-V trademark to say that. I'll let you look at all of these fine details, and maybe just point out one key point of this is, we'll talk about it a little in a couple of slides about the licensing structure that we're trying to put in place and the founding members. But the intent is that as the original work has sort of been put into the public domain and is believed to be free and unencumbered by any unencumbered from any IP issues, any extensions to the spec that get contributed back need to come into the foundation under those same conditions, right? So the sustaining and evolving of the open source licensing of the RISC-V ISA is a key tenet of the foundation. So we have a board of directors. You've probably seen that. That I'll introduce here in a bit. We announced the board, I guess, end of April, beginning of May. I'd hope to be further with the membership agreements and bylaws, but I'll talk about why we're not just yet. We have a board of directors, and under the board of directors, we'll have a technical committee with the various task groups that will drive the work, so the formal spec, for instance, debugging, a number of topics that we want to work on. And then we'll also have a marketing committee, and one of the things that we're going to be discussing probably right away on Thursday is where we take this format, right? It's going to be bigger by the time we hit Google, and figuring out how we want to meet as a group is going to be an important part of it. You've probably seen this. We have several different classes of membership, and I'll introduce some of those in a moment. With Platinum being the highest, and basically allowing your member company to participate at all functions within the foundation. Gold, Silver, and then Auditor on down from there. So that the key difference between, say, Auditor and the other three is Auditors intended for research institutions, non-commercial uses of RISC-V. And if you have a commercial use, then the trademark license that I mentioned earlier is part of being either silver, gold, or platinum. Okay, so where are we with the foundation? So if you were at the Oracle workshop in January, we had 16 companies that had already decided to give us money and help us get the foundation off the ground. And I had a lofty goal to get to 25 by this workshop. We're at 41, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And we got our board of directors established here in Q2, and one of the first things that the board will do is ratify the bylaws and membership agreement. And that's taken a little bit longer than we had hoped because we had set the original founding status to be open until this workshop. And in the last 6 weeks, it's almost like there's been a fire sale on being part of the foundation, and everybody and their brother wanted to be part of this founding member status. And one of the things that we did for that is allowing all companies who were part of the founding member group to review the bylaws and membership agreement. But we went ahead and established the board in Q2. So what I'd like is if, as I call you out, if you could just stand up and wave to the crowd. The chairman, I think most people know Kirsta, is Kirsta Asanovich. So make sure you recognize the face because you're going to be given some assignments here in a moment. Is Zvonimir in the room? No. So Zvonimir Bandich from WD is one of our directors. Charlie Hawk, I know I saw Charlie from Blue Spec. So recognize the face because homework's coming. Dave Patterson, I think that everybody might already know Dave or know of Dave or have one of his textbooks or maybe has thrown his textbook across the room. Or Jonathan Rosenberg, Jothi is not here right now, but he'll be here at the reception from Draper Labs. And same with Franz from NVIDIA. And then Ted, I saw you, and Ted Spears from Microsemi. So for the board members that are here today, during the breaks and lunch, please seek them out, say hello, tell them what you think is important to you about RISC-V and what you think the foundation needs to do, right? Because like any organization, any company, the board works for you, right? I work for the board, so they tell me what to do. And the board works for you in terms of representing the member companies and, if you will, shareholders of the organization. So we had this founding member status definition, right? That at the outset we figured, hey, it'll take us about a year to get this thing off the ground, so let's give ourselves a year to recruit some corporate interest. From the incorporation in August through to this workshop in July is about a year. Okay, we'll keep it open till then. And like I said, we had 16 in January, figured, we can add another 9 or so, maybe get to 25 by July, and that'd be great. And then be able to move on to, getting the organization up and running. Well, we have 41, and it's an impressive list of companies at the platinum level. So here's all the platinum companies. And I'm not going to read through all of them on the next slide, but I think just out of appreciation for the platinum groups, I'm going to go ahead and just name them out here. So Berkeley's Architecture Research Lab, Blue Spec, Cordis, Draper, Google, HP, Enterprise, IBM, Mellanox, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Microsemi, Oracle, Qualcomm, Rambus, Sci5, and Western Digital. So it's a pretty impressive roster at the platinum level, and lots of logos on this puppy here at the gold, silver, and auditing level. In total, 41 companies, and one of the benefits of being a founding company, as I said earlier, was the ability to influence the language that we had in the membership agreement, and the licensing language in the membership agreement, and bylaws. So that's why we don't have those out just yet, because some of these guys signed up literally in the last 48 hours or so, which has been entertaining for me, but nonetheless, it's been fun. The membership agreement and bylaws are really meant to describe the governance framework for the foundation. And as I said earlier, the original work was put into industry in a free and open way, and that requires that any member contribution that extends that work be contributed back to the foundation in a similar free and open way, which will then get redistributed back out to all members through the license agreement. So there's really two parts to the membership agreement, the member license and the core license, and that covers those two terms. And then the bylaws is literally the rules we're going to choose to live by. And they're fairly, I think they're fairly standard in terms of open standards organizations and what you'll see out there. So there's not a lot of new things, new ground that we've covered there. One area that's new though is you don't have to be a member to participate in the evolution of the specifications. One of the things we want to make sure happens is certainly the task groups and in the technical committee and so on that are doing the work are driving most of the content that's going to go into that piece of work. But we want to make sure that every task group has at least one public consultation over the course of editing the drafts of the specs that are going to be released so that the community at large can comment on the work that's being done. Pretty much got us on time. I'm sorry if I kind of sped through that. You'll have all these slides either on the USB sticks once FedEx determines we can have them, or as a minimum up on the site. So with that, that's the end of my talk. The workshop on the 29th and 30th coming this fall, as I said, is being hosted by Google, so thank you to Google for that. So mark those dates in your calendar. And you know, this is an impressive group. Like I said at the outset, we have 63 companies, 42 universities represented. And with that, I'll switch over to Kirsta while seeing if are there any questions for me before we do that? Because we have a couple of runner mics. Oh, one of the rules of engagement. If you're going to ask a question, you're going to wait for the runner mic to arrive to you. And as you're introducing your question, you're going to introduce yourself. I got your slides here. Oh, yeah, you're going to introduce yourself so that everybody can hear the question and we can move on. But does anybody have any questions for me? So just introduce yourself and go ahead.
All right, Jonathan Hoffman from Technolution. As RISC-V is being actually a worldwide organization, so to say, are there any plans on planning, for example, workshops on other places outside the America?
Very good question. Yes, absolutely. So that's one of the things that we want to do is get more representation internationally. We have some interesting companies and interesting universities from around the world. It might have been hard to see with the universities, but hopefully I get all these right. So obviously we have Berkeley at the table, MIT at the table, IIT Madras in India, ETH Zurich, and the International Computing Technology Group at the Chinese Academy of Science in Beijing, right? So we have very good academic worldwide representation as well as corporate worldwide representation. So the intent is we'll either have regional groups that look after the different parts of the world, and as a minimum, we'll be looking for a venue at this time next year, probably not to be in North America. We'll have the Mountain View facility at Google for the fall one, and likely try to be either in Europe or Asia this time next year. So if any of you European-based organizations want to host next year, I'm your guy, right? Come see me.